cover us. Green button time. And might as well call April 17th, Board of Public Works meeting to order. All right, invocation, pleasure. Okay. Start out with, Lord, I pray you guide us in our efforts to add value to citizen ratepayers. Help us do all that is necessary to provide a safe environment for employees doing very dangerous jobs. I thank you for providing dedicated people who fill the BPW positions every day and provide us the guidance to inspire all of us to do our very best. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Comments from the audience? No one signed up, so I'm assuming we're not going to have that. So we'll move right into Darren's general manager report, please.
Excellent. I've just got a couple of items. Number one, thank you. Thank you very much. I only have a few items, and I'll be brief, even though you can read more detail through the report itself. Number one, we have here a resolution from the House of Representatives of the state of Missouri. Representative Lewis Riggs was a part of this. On April 10th, we sent down to the state capitol Kenny Garcia. He's one of our senior linemen, and he's also about to retire. He's announced that, and it won't be long before he's no longer here with us, but he's had a great, successful career. But this is a resolution in appreciation for the linemen for the work that they do. Linemen deal with things that if they do it wrong can cost them their life very easily and can cost lots of things. They do it very well. They do it professionally. On April 18th, tomorrow, is National Lineman Day that will be celebrated, but wanted to bring this to everyone's knowledge and an appreciation to our linemen that they have done a great job and continue to do it. You get to Matt Munslinger's report. We'll talk about what the reliability is, and you'll see that our reliability is exceptional and that they continue to be proactive instead of reactive, and we've got some good things happening. If it weren't for squirrels, man, we'd be just in another universe. But other than that, this is something that very, very, very proud of and happy that we're able to receive that and participate in that.
That's awesome.
Number two, we're talking about at the solar airport. We are getting to the very end of our RFP to where we are now down to approximately two different companies that have put in their applications. We're going to have a final call and look at giving a final nod to one of them if, again, it still has to make sense financially. One of them is a low dollar amount, but they're not going to put any effort into site preparation. So all they're going to do is cherry pick, and we'll end up with maybe 2 megawatts of power. The other one, it will cost us more, and it will be a little more, right around 4 to maybe 5 megawatts of power. But we'll have to see again what those numbers are, what that comes to, and I will be bringing both of those to you. And what the recommendation also of our consultants are as we look at what they've done. So that is coming close. I would still reiterate that even when we come and go through this process, I will bring that to you in May for your approval, that it will still take probably a year before they get all the FAA approvals, before they get the environmental study approvals, before they get the permitting required done, before you see dirt turning and actually see some panels being put out there. So we're not to the end of that road by any way, shape, or means, but that's a update on that report.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are there any supply chain issues with panels?
There are, yes. Again, I think we're going to find out from what's given through the RFPs what their supply chain issues are. There are, and some of them had longer times than the other. So again, each company kind of has their own issues that they're dealing with and how they're dealing with them. Thirdly, MISO capacity auction. The MISO, as we know, there's three things that we're paying for in our electric bill. And when I say our electric bill, we as a wholesaler. And Paul's going to go over it again. We've gone through the budget. You've heard that. This last year for capacity, we paid approximately $3.4 million. This coming year, we've done some hedging to bring that down and to reduce it. But MISO is the one that comes up with the ultimate cost for market capacity. If we were to go with the market capacity, we were told that right around $300 is what they were looking at this year. MISO has done some changes with that market. Usually it's an annual market. It usually happens at the very beginning of April and then is announced at mid-April. So I would have been sitting here with the fresh news right off the press. The problem is MISO, when they figured the market, they had an error in their computing, and with that, it has been postponed by a month. The second thing that happens is they went from doing an annual market to now doing a quarterly market where we have to take and be accountable for each quarter from spring to summer to fall to winter. And each one of those has different values. The one that's the most critical or has the highest is summer. It's the most difficult to be completely covered, and it is therefore also the most expensive. If we have an error or are short and have to go to the market for the summer, we are still penalized for every single season for that one seasonal error or shortfall. And I see you for, and I do the exact same thing. So on one hand, the rules are saying you've got to cover it, and then if you don't, then you're penalized times 4. What's the difference between that and an annual market? I'm not sure what that is. What the reason I share this with you is to simply emphasize the volatility that we are still dealing with inside the electric market. And this is exacerbated because the large amounts of the push towards renewables that do not carry with it any of the capacity. Let me rephrase that. You only get 18% of the nameplate capacity off of a solar panel as a capacity number. And while coal is being retired, coal power is going out, all of the natural gas is now becoming under fire a little bit more, and all of the base load generation is going away while renewables are being built at a very fast level, but you only get 18% of that to be capacity. And so capacity remains and will continue to be the short leader, the most expensive driver of what our rates are. We're doing everything we can to manage it, but it's just still very, very volatile. Any questions or thoughts on that? We're very lucky to have a very good consultant that helps get us through it, both through GDS and MPUA. They keep a very close look on it and keep us educated in what we're doing and what are the best things to do on it for us as we go forward.
Okay.
So we're
I
not,
would guess, since it's going to quarterly, that the price will probably be higher
this year, we believe we've got it pretty
than
well.
what an annual would
Yes,
be.
no, you're absolutely correct. But and part of what I'm sharing this for you is that there was hopes in my mind that kind of things would kind of calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, natural gas prices are starting to actually come down. You've got natural gas reserves. You've got some of the LNP costs that we're paying today. They have come down. It's really coming back down from post-COVID numbers. That looks okay. But that capacity is still there, and we do not anticipate that changing in the near future. So that's a number that's brand new to the market that's going to be there, and I anticipate it that's going to be there for a couple of years to come.
I understand it's entirely speculation, but do we anticipate, or is there a possibility of some relaxing of the rates on coal or the regulations pertaining to coal generated? That could be extended?
Again, this is pure supposition, and there's that
understand.
crystal ball. However, I don't see it happening simply because if a lot of your base load generation in order to start a coal-fired power plant, you've got to get through all of the exhaust regulations. And those regulations are getting more and more strict. We're talking mercury in the parts per trillion. There's these numbers are just so very difficult to meet that's how our
That's what's generating
currently regulation is crushing that industry. And for the industry to step up and try and get around that, it would take them more than 4 years, and who knows what happens every 4 years. And so there's, without that surety, who wants to invest in that? And you'll find very few people want to invest in that, and it's
but we're looking at our coal generating plant
our coal.
being, shut down early.
Correct.
Because of the regulations.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't have good news.
I understand.
We've got to continue to be, we're reaching out there. We're getting the best contracts we can. We are going to, in 2028, we're still looking at having the grain belt. That's wind power coming from Kansas over to Indiana, and we'll be a part of that. Mm-hmm. That'll be a plus for us, but it's still not going to do us. Again, that doesn't bring us. It doesn't bring us capacity. Right. So, all those things, we're just going to have to continue to be flexible and do what we can on the market. Finally, I'll be asking you to approve this later on in the meeting, but our stormwater funding, it's moving forward. I have reached out to 14 of the people that were on the list that we presented to you last month. They have agreed to serve. There were others that weren't able to because of time constraints and other responsibilities that they have. We have 14 that have agreed. I have a 15th that I'm going to go after tomorrow night. And we'll be going before the city council. And we've asked that one member of city council serve on that committee. Once we get a name from there, we will be holding our first meeting. That will be May 4th at 6:00 right here in this room. The first one will be heavy with education. We plan on presenting from Black and Beach, Prabha Kumar, who is our consultant there. She's frankly one of the nation's leaders in stormwater funding questions. She's going to talk about two of the methodologies, two that we've already presented. One is the impervious-pervious assessment. The other is gross area assessment. We'll let her present that. We have some opinions from the attorneys that we have received talking about, can we do a sales tax? Also talking about, can we do non-taxable entities? Can we include them in this funding? Both of those questions have been answered by attorneys. We'll provide that to them, and then we've got a couple of others, kind of general national studies. We're going to give that to them as soon as we get the person from the council that's going to be asked to serve. I will share that, so that'll be this week, and then they'll be able to study that for a couple of 3 weeks until we have our first meeting.
Mike, do you need to be on another committee? I know how that goes.
So that is what I have for my report, unless there's questions.
Will we have to, at that meeting, you think, have definitive answers on maximums? For example, sales tax in this local area could only be X number of basis points additional based on some statute or city charter item or anything like that?
I'll share with you exactly those opinions, and what they've said is that the state of Missouri says you can only do a 0.5-cent sales tax for stormwater, and the city passed that the last attempt.
No,
it was parks.
We did it. That was a long time ago.
Okay, but the Parks and Rec, and with that we can't do any more. So I think we're pretty well done. I think the sales tax question, we've got to take that off the table, unfortunately. But we'll look at that. And if we also asked, and it's Alex Riley, our attorney that's working through a Healy law firm, and he's also down at the state legislature. He says he does not see that that's a way that we can get any funding, that's not the right way to go about it. So we'll see how that goes.
Should we, maybe this comes to the legal issue, should we as board members attend those meetings, or should we kind of divorce ourselves entirely from that committee until they come with up with a presentation?
It is an open meeting. So we'll post it, and that way you're invited, and you can attend if you want, and don't have to attend if you don't think it's the right thing to do.
So legal confirms that we all come as citizens and it's not a required posted board meeting?
For the meeting on May 4th.
Yeah.
I would still do a posted meeting, just because with all of y'all being present, there is that potential that it is an open meeting and we run afoul of the statutes if we don't post that.
We will post it. Courtney will take care of us.
Since it's not an official board meeting, it's a committee meeting. So we would not be involved in running it.
Correct.
Right, but we'd be present.
We could be present.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that there's not, my concern is that citizens of Hannibal might be okay, board members are there trying to influence and make recommendations, and would we be construed as having more weight in our opinion on something as any other citizen?
I mean, you're still able to be there, be present, and give your opinion, whether it's viewed as the opinion of
Okay.
a board member or an opinion as a citizen. You're still able to give that opinion.
You don't lose your rights as a citizen
Oh, I agree.
because you're on the board.
I agree.
They can't
But-
go out and sell it, though. No.
How would the committee members feel with us being part of it? Would they feel that that we're putting out our opinion and construe it as an official opinion?
You can't.
That's the kind of things.
You can't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way we could speculate on their
Right.
interpretation.
But I think right now you don't have an official board position, so if you were to speak up, I think you would be doing it as a citizen.
That's true. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have, unless you have questions of me.
No, any questions there?
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Matt, for operations, if you would.
First thing to just bring up, talk about a little bit is potential flooding impacts this spring. Right now, we're sitting about 15.5 on the river level. Minor flood stage is 17. Right now, the projected rivers, or the projected 2-week river stage is 19.4, and that's on April 30th. That only takes into account 2 days or 48 hours worth of precipitation events up along the river. So we're monitoring it. We're taking and implementing our flood protection plan. We're working with the city on the stormwater pumping station, as that's something that had been rehabilitated since the 2019 flood event and has only got half the test time that originally had included in that bid process. So we're working with them. As Darren alluded to, we're still seeing good numbers on our electric side. We only had 5 outage events over the month of March. 3 of those were squirrel related. So our number of outages continue to decline. We had some of the wind events, and with relatively minor impacts. We had one, that Tuesday storm. So it'd been first part of right there around the first part of April. That next Tuesday. That storm, we had one tree that was outside the easement that blew over and fell through power line down on Riverside, and so that was the only impact of wind that we had during those 2 events. And so that again goes back to our tree trimming and the updating of our system. At the water plant, we're reaching the final stretches of the installation of the generator up there. Back in 2021, we sold the 2 megawatt generator that was housed up there. In December of 2021, we ordered the new one. It finally came in about the end of March. And so we're working with the supplier of the generator and the transfer switch hopefully we'll get that done Thursday, where we've got everything tested out and it'll be fully operational. On page 7 of the report, or page 2 of my report, you'll see the big discrepancy in the water sent out to the system. As alluded to last month, we're working with Gordon Eden on looking for unaccounted for water. One thing they found was our effluent meter on our high side was reading about 200 gallon a minute high, which is really rare that a meter speeds up rather than slows down. And so it's something that we're taking into account, and that's part of the reason for the decrease in production numbers from March of 23 versus March of 22 or 21. And moving forward, we're working on replacement of that, but through the duration of utilizing Mr. Eden, we're going to have his meters there monitoring as well. We had our first of our 4 planned carbon exchange or GAC exchanges there at the first part of March. And then we're preparing for our semi-annual basin cleaning. That's when we take each of the individual basins down, hose out all the muck and debris from the bottom, and put the basin, or we do a evaluation of the equipment at the same time. And that way we can be prepared when we take stuff down in the fall. We can get in there and make the repairs. Water distribution side of things. Last summer we had anticipated getting replacement of a small 1.5-inch, 2-inch main along Lily. We had bought the pipe. We just, because of other constraints on our time, we weren't able to get it completed. The crew started about the end of March on it, and hopefully they have it wrapped up by the end of this week. So that's the replacement of a small undersized main with a new 8-inch main. At the wastewater treatment plant, you'll see our numbers are down from previous years. As far as the total volume of water treated, that just goes back to the lack of snow and lack of precipitation events that we've had. As the river continues to climb, I anticipate that this next month will be up in line with what normal April treated flows are. One thing we did do, and knowing some of you may or may not know this, but we're required to chlorinate our effluent of our wastewater plant only seasonally. They define it as the recreational season, or April 1st through the end of October. And so crews went through and worked with a vendor, and we went through all of our chlorination equipment during the month of March and put that system online March 31st, so we could comply with our NPDES permit. We did have an SSO that occurred on our collection system that was related to roots, and so they're focusing their efforts on addressing roots. And then on the stormwater side of things, we had an MS4 inspection back in January. We got a letter of warning in February, and then we worked with city staff to answer their questions and respond to DNR during the month of March, and believe we have a system worked out between us and the city on review of plans and MS4 requirements moving forward. Matthew's been working on trying to update our cyber insurance coverage. Several years ago, we were able to utilize MIRMA, which is our insurance carrier, to provide that coverage. Last year, they discontinued that just to the rising cost of it. And so we went out on our own and purchased cybersecurity insurance. This year they had talked about bringing it back, but that's something Matthew's looking into is what coverage we need moving forward and where we're going to obtain that coverage. The AMI meters, we're down to 26 water meters that need replaced. I think 18 of those are, or most of those are inside meters. Trying to gain access has been troublesome. We're going to work through that process. Hopefully we can work with the owners and gain access without having to threaten to shut their water off. But if it comes down to it, that's what we've had to do in the past. And just people don't understand that we just need to get in there to upgrade your meters. So we do have 164 electric meters left to do. Our shipments of electric meters are continuing to get pushed out further and further. And so hopefully we'll get those in and be able to finish out that. Also had a Claire representative in doing an inspection of our 11 collection stations. They found a bunch of different equipment that had failed, and they're in the process of replacing that as it is under warranty. And that's all I've got for the operations report, unless you all have any questions.
Any questions for that?
I do have a comment. It's under the GAC. I know we swap that out every 90 days. Is that right?
We swap out 2 vessels. We've got eight vessels total, so we swap one pair of vessels out once a year.
And so that rotation with the budget is about 375,000. Our citizens, and this is for the citizens' information, that's about a little over $1,000 a day for us for the GAC system that is polishing the water. That's to their benefit, but there is a ongoing expense there that the citizens need to understand, that we're going the extra mile with the GAC system.
Yep, and that's something we're working to optimize the chemical addition upstream of the GAC so that we can utilize the GAC specifically for what it was in TOC reduction. And so if we can bring cleaner water into it, hopefully we can extend the life of it and reduce the number of change-outs.
Explain TOC.
Total organic carbon.
Okay.
That's what interacts with the free chlorine and causes the disinfection byproducts that we're regulated on.
Thank you.
I will, again, just jump in real quick. We have been working at being proactive instead of reactive. You've seen that, what's happened with our electric, with our tree trimming, that's worked. If you look at the SSOs, the sanitary sewer overflows, we had 1 that month. And that's really, truly, our guys have been out videoing, they've been out taking and doing repairs proactively. And Matt's been driving that pretty heavy. You've got Matthew that's been working on all of the AMI. All of that proactive effort really is starting to show, and you can see it in numbers. While we're going to have to talk about with the budget that Paul will go through, they've done a great job of making sure that we're going to be proactive. We're going to stay proactive. We're doing the same with our operations, both at the wastewater treatment plant, the operations at the water treatment plant. They're working hard, staying ahead of things, repairing things before they break, so that we're, planning is essential, prioritizing is essential, and that's exactly what they're doing, what we're doing, and it's showing, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Great. And Matthew, you could continue on with the projects, please.
At the water plant, we got 2 projects currently ongoing. First is roof replacement. We've had some issues with some shingles blowing off in the past year, and also some leaks as a result of that. We're working with Miko Engineering. They should have bid documents within the next, hopefully by the end of this week, that are out to the public so that we can get quotes on a new metal roof or go back with asphalt shingles. Hopefully be able to bring that to you all for your approval at the May board meeting. Second project is the GAC, or not the GAC, but the gravity filter media replacement. We've added to it since in my 15 years here, but we've never replaced it. And we're at that end of life. And so what they'll do is they'll go in, take out approximately 3 feet of media and redo the under drains so that we get better filtration ahead of the GAC filters, and hopefully help extend the life of the GAC media as well. We're working through finalizing plans and documents with the engineer on that, and hopefully later this summer we'll go out for bid on that project. That's one project we want to do kind of during our slow months, because it will require a filter to be offline for a period of time, and so we don't want that project to be ongoing during the summer peak demand. So probably be a fall or winter month project. Downtown SSO project, elimination project, we're looking with the engineer on doing some sewer lining within the floodplain area. One example is along South Main. All those houses and buildings were tore down after flood buyout. There's no reason to have all those old taps and those joints of those clay tile pipe there. So we're looking at just lining from manhole to manhole or through manholes if we can. Just that way it's one solid pipe, and limit the amount of I&I or limit the ability of I&I to enter it. So that's something hopefully we'll put out to bid later this summer. We're finalizing our hydraulic model with Trek. Darren's going to talk more about the composition of our Citizens Advisory Committee for stormwater, North Street, and Bear Creek Dam spillway improvements. Those are ARPA-funded projects that we're working through our scheduling and the required paperwork. I anticipate the North Street project to go out to bid first because we've already had solicited engineers, already got the plans done for it. The Bear Creek Dam spillway project probably will not go out to bid till maybe this time next year. And then on electrical projects, we're finalizing the design of our Oakwood to Southside tie line. We've got plans in-house from the engineer on that, and we're reviewing that in hopes of getting started on that project soon. And then our Finn connection, the 161 line had been energized during the month of March. We started to do the commissioning of the substation, got down to where we were going to switch load onto it. And because Ameren's system was abnormal, we were the short distance between our west sub and our Oakwood sub. So most of our load was trying to go through us. And so it shut down like it should. They've since returned their transmission line to normal operations. And we've got the commissioning company coming back in Wednesday to finish out the commissioning and hopefully put that transformer online. That's all I've got, unless you all have any questions.
I don't. Any questions here? No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Paul's next with financial.
Okay, financial update for the month of March. So starting with the balance sheet, compared to last month, we did have a significant decrease in unrestricted cash of just about $900,000. So we did go ahead and pay for next year's capacity, about 54% of it up front, actually in March. And so 2 of the 4 third parties that we contracted with for that capacity next year did require that payment up front. And so with that decrease in cash, we had it was actually a net zero impact to the balance sheet because we had an increase in what's called a prepaid expense. And so that capacity expense in terms of our purchase power won't impact our income statement until it's actually incurred, which will be next fiscal year. So basically a net zero impact to the balance sheet for us. Outside of that, there really weren't any other significant changes on the balance sheet compared to the previous month. So our next page down is our income statement. The electric fund for the 3rd month in a row did have a net loss for the month. The amount of that was about $234,000. So purchase power again was over budget, this time by about $92,000 for March. We did have a significant drop in revenues in the electric fund too, about 11%. Really the weather overall wasn't milder than last year. We just had a couple more cold snaps in 2022 that kind of pushed revenues up. And so I would actually say that this month was a little bit more normal for March, which it was pretty mild. The water fund did have a net loss as well of about $47,000. Again, that was directly due to the carbon changeout. It's a $92,000 expense that hits quarterly, and we budgeted for that last year monthly. And we're going to talk about how we're going to change the budget this next year to budget quarterly, which makes a lot more sense. Revenues were also down in the water fund by about 4%. And the sewer fund did finish right on budget for the month. So compared to last year, we were down quite a bit by about $752,000. Again, we talked about revenues being down in the electric fund quite a bit, and purchase power costs were up. Kilowatt hour sales for March were down about 8.6%. Year to date now, we are utility-wide at a loss of about $950,000 compared to a budgeted net income of $1.1 million. Revenues utility-wide are up by about $200,000, which is a good sign, but purchase power costs are now $2.1 million over budget, which is 100% due to capacity. So compared to last year, our net loss is about $4 million behind last year's net income. So really, if you factored in capacity into our budget, we're actually a little ahead of budget in the electric fund. So far, year to date, we've spent about $2.5 million on capacity, and our budgeted year to date net income is about $460,000. So because our current net loss is about $1.6 million, we're actually $440,000 ahead of where we would be had we budgeted for the $3.4 million in capacity. So, in short, we're not doing as bad as it looks. It's just that capacity that was not budgeted for that's throwing the numbers off in the electric fund. And then we've got all of our normal information in there. If we scroll down and look at our debt coverage ratio, we did have another slight decrease in the electric fund with the net loss for the month. The water fund continues to hover right around that 1.5 number, and the sewer fund came down just slightly as well, but pretty much consistent in that ratio in all three funds. And we've got our check register on there, and that's pretty much it for the financial report for March. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Nope. No? Looks like things are chugging along. Thank you very much. I guess we're on to the next one, all right?
Okay, so
Proposed budget, unfinished business.
the budget is there before you. It does have a few changes, so appreciate everyone coming out again earlier this month for the budget workshop. Thank you for that opportunity. I hope that was informative of kind of the direction we're going next year and some of the things we're looking at with our budget. And so there's 5 changes from what's being proposed today and compared to what we presented at the workshop. So Darren already alluded to it with our purchase power. MISO was forced to kind of go back and redo some of those algorithms, some of those calculations on the credit that they, for us, that they gave Prairie State. And so that credit that we'll be receiving for capacity next year is a little bit less than what we had originally been given. And so that did increase our capacity costs for next year by about $140,000. So that's factored in there. The water fund, we talked about this initially, our revenue projections didn't have the current fiscal year's rate increases built into it for April, May, and June, since obviously those months haven't happened yet. And so we did adjust those projections to include the 3.5% and 7.4% rate increases that were already passed. So those are now reflected. Obviously, that increased revenues in the water fund. And then also in the water fund, we just talked about it, but we did go ahead and adjust the carbon expense, which is, like you said, Bill, $375,000 for next year. We did adjust to account for that quarterly, just for better tracking purposes on that. We did a similar thing really with all 3 funds. There's certain chemicals that we only purchase during the warmer months. And so we went ahead and adjusted the budget to account for the timing issues when it comes to those expenses. And then lastly, in all 3 funds, we did go ahead and throw March's numbers into the budget. That gives us a better baseline to go off of. And again, as a reminder, we do budget our revenues based on the previous year's sales, just as it's impossible to predict the weather from one year to the next. And so the budget there in front of you does now include March's actual numbers. So briefly, since we did cover a lot of this already at the budget workshop, the electric fund is projecting a net loss for next year of about $1.2 million. That is with the projected rate increase of 9.25% in October. Factoring in your capital projects spending, we're looking at a budgeted cash reduction, so an overall decrease in our cash reserves of just under $2 million in the electric fund. The water fund, with the budget we have for next fiscal year, is looking at a net income of about $658,000. We've had some capital projects that have been put off for the last couple of years due to the newness of the GAC facility. Matt alluded to a couple of them. So capital spending is up a little bit in that fund, and so with that capital spending, we'd be looking at a cash reduction in the water fund of about $668,000 for next year. And then in the sewer fund, we have a budgeted net income of $500,000 and a budgeted cash reduction of about $1 million due to capital spending as well. So overall, if we were to take out capacity, which is projected to cost about $3 million next year, the overall increase in next year's budget compared to the current year is about 3.6%. So pretty modest, and that's primarily due to chemicals for our water treatment and tree trimming in the electric fund. So you've had a couple weeks to mull things over and look at it. Tonight, we're basically asking that the board go ahead and approve the fiscal year 24 budget as presented there before you. I'm happy to field any questions anybody has before that motion.
I think the small differences are totally accounted for, and since nothing substantive has changed, I would recommend any discussion if we have any. If not,
You did say this budget does include on the revenue side, the rate increase in September?
October
October.
1st.
Okay.
Yep. So
Of
that
9 point whatever percent.
9.25.
9.25.
Yep, and I did fail to mention that would also be a 3% increase in the water fund on the same date that we had talked about as well.
But those figures are included
Correct.
on the revenue side.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
make a motion to approve the next fiscal year
2024
budget.
budget.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Haven't heard none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, I guess.
Courtney, do we need a roll call on that, or is that okay?
All right. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
And Darren, looks like you're up again to talk a little more about the Stormwater Committee.
Excellent. So Stormwater Committee, the following people have accepted. I'm going to read off their names. You have had that list already, and just out of appreciation for their willingness to serve. One is, the following 14 are Rod Peters, Andrea Campbell, Bob Krasinski, Bill Osborne, Lisa Ball, Ted Fix, Michelle Beck, Tom Lennon, Jay Ritter, Marty Coker, Bob Yap, Larry Craig, Derwin Conley, and Jackie Walsh. And I would ask that you go ahead and pass that or make a motion that these be accepted and be accepted to be on the Stormwater Committee. And like I said, we will be getting some education for them. They will be coming for that first one in May 4th. At that meeting, we'll set up the next one. And maybe at that time, we'll have it centered enough. At the second meeting, they'll be able to pass and have an idea of what they want to do. If not, we'll have a third meeting, a fourth, whatever we need to be able to come up to some sort of solution.
Okay. Name list sounds complete. I can't think of any of those that shouldn't be on there. They're all.
And I apologize. We'll have one more, and that will be a councilman. So whoever the council decides to put on that board tomorrow night, we will accept them as well.
So the motion would be the list plus whatever the council decides.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Okay, good luck with that. That's gonna work out really well.
Thank you.
Comments from the city attorney?
I don't have anything.
Okay. General discussion? If not, then looking for a motion to go into closed session.
Closed session pursuant to section 610.0212 of the Missouri State Sunshine Law, the meeting shall convene in closed session to discuss real estate, including the board, staff, and city attorney.
We have a second?
Second.
So moved. We're in closed session. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're in closed.
Bye, Mike.
Bye, guys.